But Judicial Watch, as you know, is the nation's leader in trying to maintain free and fair and clean elections here in the United States. We promote voter ID, we promote clean elections, we promote the law and the enforcement of the law that requires states to take reasonable efforts to clean up their voting rolls. We had the first private lawsuits. There's a law called the National Voter Registration Act. And it was passed during the Clinton administration, and the left was using it as a vehicle to register voters they think that should be voting, because they thought that these voters would be voting for them. So they wanted states and localities to be required to register, give opportunities to individuals to register the vote at places like DMVs and welfare offices and places like that. That's why it was called the Motor Voter Bill. When you get your driver's license, you may know, if you've done it in person recently, you always get the opportunity to register to vote. The pushback on that was it was going to result in dirty election rolls, because people were going to be registering to vote who were either ineligible or registering to vote more than once, because they'd be given multiple opportunities to vote. And that's why the deal was, we're going to have this massive registration effort mandate on the states and localities, but we're also going to have a similar requirement that they have to take reasonable steps to make sure their voting rolls are being cleaned. Well, guess which part of the law was enforced by the left and their acolytes and their fronts in the Justice Department? The part where everyone gets to register to vote, which in theory one can't object to enforcing the law. But the part about cleaning up the rolls was not enforced. In fact, it was undermined. Thankfully, the law allowed for private parties to come in and try to enforce it, and that's what Judicial Watch did. In 2012, we filed the first lawsuits by a private party against both Indiana and Ohio to make sure their rolls were being cleaned. And the analysis we brought to bear is, look at Ohio and Indiana. I don't remember the exact stats, but normally we went in and said, you've got more people on the rolls than are eligible to vote. You have over 100% of the eligible population on the rolls. That's a pretty good darn indication that you're not taking the reasonable steps necessary to clean up the rolls. Indiana changed its law. We were satisfied, we ended the lawsuit. Ohio settled with us and agreed to take reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. The left hated that result and stepped in and tried to stop Ohio from doing that. And the Supreme Court said, no, Ohio can do that. You know what Ohio wanted to do? Send a mailing out. Are you still there, voter X? And if they don't respond to that mailing, plus they don't vote in 2 federal elections, they get removed. The left objected to that. And the Supreme Court said, get out of here. It's perfectly appropriate. And that resulted in lawsuits that we had filed in California against Los Angeles County and the state of California. Los Angeles had 1.5 million extra names on the voting rolls, it looks like. They called them, quote, inactive. California, I think, hadn't sent out one of these, quote, mailings, or well, actually hadn't cleaned their rolls in 20 years. So they saw the Supreme Court victory that upheld Judicial Watch's Ohio settlement. They saw the writing on the wall, and they settled with Judicial Watch. And Los Angeles County has begun the process of removing 1.5 million names from their rolls. It's going to take some time to complete it, because I gave you the process. They have to wait 2 general election cycles. But in the meantime, names can be removed immediately, especially if they find dead names on the rolls they haven't removed, on other obviously ineligible people. The last time we looked at counties nationally. There are 3.5 million names on the rolls who probably shouldn't have been there. And we just did an analysis, and now it's 2.5 million. And you can bet that drop in 1 million names is thanks to Judicial Watch's litigation. In fact, San Diego County, whose rolls were also a mess, they removed 500,000 names, it looks like, after we settled with Los Angeles County and the state of California, who agreed to start notifying other counties they need to start doing what the law requires. In Kentucky, Kentucky entered in a consent decree with Judicial Watch, and the Justice Department, thankfully, they came in. Shows you what a change in leadership will do. Well, they're just still way behind the 8 ball on all of this. And there's a consent decree. And they're supposed to remove at least 250,000 names. It looks like 500,000 names eventually. So all that's going to take time. So we're not sitting on our duff waiting to see what else happens. We've done another analysis. There's been another round. There's been another election, 2018. There have been reports to the Federal Election Assistance Commission, which gives us registration data. There's census data out there. And we did an analysis, and we just announced this analysis. We looked at 378 counties nationwide, and there are, as I said, 2.5 million names in these counties where registration rates exceed 100%, meaning those names really need to be removed after this due process of law that I've been talking about. Thankfully, it's a drop of 1 million names, but we still have a long way to go. And what Judicial Watch has done is that we sent notice of violation letters to 19 large counties in, let's see, 5 states, telling them you need to take steps to clean up your rolls, otherwise you may face a lawsuit. The states are Colorado, Jefferson County, California, several counties of California, including San Diego County, which even after removing 500,000 inactive names, still has a registration rate of 117%. 117%, meaning they have 17% more people on the rolls than are living there and eligible to vote. You know, most counties have registration rates of around 77%. So when you're talking 117%, you're talking a dirty, dirty set of rolls. One of the highest registration rates in the country. North Carolina, big county. Mecklenburg County, a disaster. Virginia, Fairfax County, big county, a disaster. Pennsylvania, Allegheny, Bucks, Chester County, Delaware County, disasters. Dirty voting rolls can mean dirty elections. And look, this is what and of course, when we go into court and when we raise these issues, we get attacked by the left. That I am convinced wants dirty election rolls, wants dirty elections, because they want to be able to steal elections if necessary. Why else would they oppose voter ID? Why else would they oppose basic steps to take to clean up voter rolls? Why else would they have opposed the very idea of asking citizens or asking people registering to vote to certify that they're citizens? I've done an analysis based on a study that was done out of Old Dominion. There's been an analysis, there's been a study out of Old Dominion University, several years old now. But when you extrapolate that analysis, you'll see that, just think about this, you have tens of millions of aliens in the United States, both legal and otherwise. And then from there on in, you can figure out through data analysis how many of them are registering to vote, a percentage register to vote, and of those who register to vote, a certain percentage of them vote. And when one extrapolates that study, you can look, for instance, in 2018, it looks like maybe 900,000 people would have voted who were not eligible to vote because they were foreign nationals, both legal and illegal. Well, how do you fix that? You make sure that you certify citizenship when people register to vote. And you hear the debate about voter ID. Only 10 states have strong voter ID laws. 10, maybe 11, 10 or 11. Strong voter ID laws. 15 states, including Pennsylvania, California, here in the District of Columbia, Illinois, big states, they don't have any voter ID laws. And then there are states who have what I call weak to moderate voter ID laws, meaning what you think is voter ID to vote, which ought to be like a driver's license or something that's been validated in a serious way. You think that's necessary? No, that isn't what those voter ID states require, or many of them require. You can show up with a utility bill. Or you can vote and then come back later with some form of ID, as I said, much of which is weak. We got to have stronger voter ID laws in this country. The left opposes that all. Why would you be opposed to that? They say because they think it depresses turnout for minorities, but there's no evidence that's the case. There's simply no evidence that's the case. In fact, my view is, and the studies suggest, that when you have increased election integrity, increased election security, reassuring people that their votes will count, everyone votes more, especially minorities. So once again, it's up to Judicial Watch to do the heavy lifting on cleaning up the rolls. So this is the big takeaway. 2.5 million dirty names, it looks like, on our nation's voting rolls. Judicial Watch has warned 5 states to clean up their rolls or they may face lawsuits. And these are not idle threats by Judicial Watch, because we actually go into court and we've sued 4 or 5 times on this very issue and have gotten good results in terms of getting the rolls cleaned up. So can we guarantee these rolls will be clean for the 2020 elections? I don't know. I think even sending these letters out will begin will get rolls cleaned up almost immediately. So as a result of our work, elections will be cleaner next year, and the election after, in 2020, and the election after that, and the election after that. It's a slow process, but no one's doing it but Judicial Watch, practically speaking. I can think of one other group that's doing this work. Some of our clients are obviously doing this work as well in California, the groups we're working with there. But nationally, it's Judicial Watch. I can think of maybe a half a dozen lawyers and individuals who are doing this work, most of whom work with us, versus unlimited resources by the left. It's David versus Goliath. Although nowadays, thanks to the support that you and others give to Judicial Watch, it's Goliath versus Goliath. Judicial Watch versus the left. At the state level, trying to enforce the law to clean up the rolls. So we've begun the process again, and we want clean elections, and we want your vote to count, and no one else is doing that like Judicial Watch is. So I encourage you to track this work. You can go to our website at judicialwatch.org to find out about this and all of our other lawsuits and investigations. And you can look at all the FOIA documents, all these Benghazi documents I've been talking about. They're all available on our website. And if you're not supporting our work, you should be supporting our work. You can see why, because no one else is doing it.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.